Hey guys, it's Marissa from Grow in the Flow, and I'm coming in here on April 1st. It's April Fool's Day, and so we're here to talk about how everybody plays the Fool. That's right, we're talking about the Fool's journey through the tarot. And so I wanted to pop in here first before we get started with the presentation that I want to take you through. To thank you for those of you who contributed questions and topics that you'd like to pursue. I'm really excited to share this with you. We're just dipping our toe in today. We're just going to look at some of the questions that came forward. We're going to talk about the Fool and a little bit about some of the cards in the major arcana. What is that anyway? What is this major, minor arcana? All that stuff. We're going to dive in a little bit into that. But I want to encourage you to share any thoughts, questions, things that you have to share about your understanding of the tarot as well, because what I'm sharing with you today is my perspective. It's one particular lens, one particular way of working with the tarot, how I have learned it this far. But I consider myself a lifelong student of the tarot. There are so many layers of symbolism and meaning to these cards, but more importantly, it's about connecting you in with your intuition, which means there is no right or wrong. You do not have to memorize these cards. It's about you developing your own relationship with the signs and symbols. We're simply using some of those facts about the cards as a foundation to build off of. But you do not need to feel like you have to memorize what every card means. Put that book away. You don't need the book. We're tapping into our intuition here. And it's a really beautiful system. I'm very excited to share it with you. Like I said, this is just high level. We're dipping our toe in. I want to thank you for being with me today. I always appreciate your comments, your feedback, and anything that you have to add. If there's other things that you would like to know, perhaps we can make this into a series or something that we can explore together. But this is going to talk about the Fool's journey and how everybody plays the Fool. So thank you for joining me. Again, comments, questions, anything you want to share in the below. I really appreciate your participation. So let's go check it out. Welcome to The Fool's Journey, starring everybody as the Fool. Card 0, the beginning of the tarot. We are all the Fool. Come here to this earth plane to live this lifetime, to experience lessons, blessings, growth, healing, expansion as a soul. And throughout that journey, the Fool is walking through a series of archetypes, overarching lessons and experiences that are portrayed in the tarot as the 21 cards of the major arcana. And so as the Fool moves about this journey throughout the major arcana, we can think of it like a wheel, moving through and circling through these lessons and these experiences again and again. And so filling out this journey come the 56 cards that are in the minor arcana. And the minor arcana are 4 suits that make up the people, places, and things along the Fool's journey. And so when we think about the fact that we are all the Fool, all of the players that we meet along this path are here to facilitate our growth, our lessons, our journey, and we are serving them the same. And so we look at the different cards, the signs, the symbols, the archetypes that are coming up to color that journey, to glean perspective, and to shift our awarenesses. And so when we look at major and minor arcana, we see, what is that word anyway? What does it mean? Well, the word arcana means secret or mystery. So when we talk about major mysteries, major secrets, big secrets, these are the events, the big events that happen throughout our life, the significant stops along the Fool's journey. So when we talk about minor arcana, those little secrets, those are the small everyday events and conflicts. It's the stuff that makes up the journey. And so that is portrayed through 4 suits: the pentacles, the wands, the swords, and the cups. And in each of those 4 suits, we also see court cards, which are pages, knights, queens, and kings. And they represent actual people, perhaps ourselves or others around us, personalities, aspects of people, or energies and situations that are in our life. So when we familiarize ourselves with these signs and symbols and connect in, they begin to weave a story for us that can help us to glean that perspective and awareness along our path. Now today we're just taking a peek at some of these aspects. We're not memorizing anything. There's no pressure here. We're just looking at these suits and seeing how there are rich layers of symbolism within each of them. So here we see how the suit of wands is associated with the element of fire, the season of spring. It represents the sparks, the creativity. It's associated with our sacral chakra, our work in the world. They bring out that fire element. Then we have the suit of pentacles or coins. You see here, there's different terms sometimes that they'll be referred to. Typically, pentacles is the earth element, our root chakra, what roots us and grounds us into the earth. It's the material world, our money, our safety, security, our property, our family. It can represent our ancestry, our bloodline. It's the suit that corresponds with the winter. The suit of swords is the air element. So that represents our thoughts, our thinking, our mental capacity. It is associated with the fall. And it can be something that helps us to use that logic, that mental acumen, but also can be a source of conflict, confusion, analysis paralysis. When we look at the fourth suit of cups, this is the heart chakra, the element of water, the season of summer. It represents our emotions. It represents our relationships. So we can see how when we familiarize ourselves with these different symbols and the elements that they hold, it helps us again to bring in the characters and the details of those people, places, and things that are making up our journey. And the symbolism doesn't stop there. As we look at each card, everything that we see has meaning. There's symbols. It's speaking to us on a universal level. So the clothing that the characters are wearing, the nature around them, whether it looks like the sun is shining or it is cloudy, what they are holding, all of the things that are going on the cards hold meaning. And again, these are not meanings that you have to memorize, but they're all aspects that you can call on to help you connect in with how it speaks to you. You're creating your own relationship with these cards and developing your own language when it comes to connecting in with your higher self and using these cards simply as a tool to help you access your own inner knowing. So now we're going to take a look at a couple specific major arcana cards. We received some questions. What are some of these things? What do they mean? So we're going to take a look at a few specific cards, and we're going to start with my favorite, the Hanged Man. So now this is a card where we find the figure hanging upside down, literally bound and suspended in air. What does that mean? And so when we look at the Hanged Man, it's a representation of being stuck, there's a pause. He's in a state of immobility. And yet we can see, especially if we were to flip that card around, that his head is illuminated. The crown chakra is illuminated. There's awareness coming in. So what this can represent to us is different perspectives, many different perspectives, and how when we are able to fully surrender and accept what is, the awareness comes in through the stuckness. It is that pause that allows us to access new awarenesses that we may not have otherwise had. And I've never seen this more beautifully depicted than in this particular version of the Hanged Man, known as the Observe card. And so what we see here is ourself. In the center of the card, we have our current self, where we have a particular vantage point. There's things we can see, there's things that we can't see. But we know that we have many different aspects to ourselves. We have our current self, our past self, our future self, our ego self, our higher self. And here we see in each image a different season depicted as well in the earrings. These are the kind of subtle symbols that are so cool when we look at these cards. How do they speak to us? The seasons of life, the different angles and perspectives and ways that we can see things, and yet we see that light streaming in through that rainbow that's coming in from the crown. And so how can we glean new perspective in the stuckness? Here is our current self. We know that there are things that our past self was previously unable to see, didn't know how that thing was going to turn out, didn't know how to proceed, that our current self now knows how that thing turned out. What might our current self tell that past version of us to help us move through that situation, knowing what we know now? And so in that same way, we can connect in as our current self with our future self or our higher self, because they know that everything is going to be just as it should be, that we are on our fool's journey, and that everything that is occurring for us are all happening for us to facilitate our journey. And so this is a card I love to look at to connect in with those different aspects of self and glean those different perspectives. And understand again that sometimes when we have a pause, when we're stuck, when we're unable to move, that is just the very thing that is needed in order for us to gain awareness, clarity, new perspective. And so while we're here hanging upside down, let's take a look at one of our questions, which is reverse cards. How do you read upside down cards? Or do you? Does it matter if the cards come out upside down? Well, this is a matter of personal preference, and you'll find different opinions amongst tarot readers. Personally, I do not read reverse cards. I like to keep my cards in the upright position. So for the most part, I shuffle them and handle them in such a way that I'm reading them in the upright position. However, if something does come out in reverse, especially because of the way I handle the cards, that could get my attention to indicate something that deserves a deeper look. Now, when you are working with reversed cards, shuffling the cards in such a way that they could come upright, they might come upside down. Reverse cards could indicate energy blockages, too much energy, that a shadow side or underlying issue needs to be addressed. It can add extra depth and insight to a reading. It could simply be the opposite of the traditional meaning of a card. And so really, when you are looking at a reverse card, you would want to use 3 factors to really kind of figure out whether or not you're reading the card upside down or not. Number 1, your intuition. Some cards just feel like they need more attention. When you're looking at that story playing out and where the card is positioned and so forth, you might see that it makes sense that it would be upside down, meaning the energy might be just coming in. It's just coming into focus. It might be moving out. It could be something that is on its way out. So it really depends on the context of the reading. That's another thing we want to look at. So depending on what the question is, the context surrounding the reading, then we take a look at how it's coming up, the cards that are around it. And then, how open-ended do we want the message to be? Do we want it to be black and white? This is the meaning of the card. This is the meaning of that card. So we'll simply say if it's upside down, it must be the opposite. Or are we looking at this as, again, a story, a journey that we are on, and allowing all of the cards to work with each other? So again, you can't go wrong, because it is a matter of personal preference. It's a matter of following your own intuition, the context of the reading, and just how open-ended you want the reading to be. Now, another question is, what about negative cards? What about those cards that look ominous and scary, the ones that we've seen on TV that are played out, that someone is reading our fortune and telling us that they're foretelling of something that is dark and shadowy? And that's typically depicted in these 3 cards that we see here: the Death card, the Devil, and the Tower. And, I admit, even though I put a little glossy sheen on it here, when we see those cards, we go, ooh, okay, yeah, we've got something significant coming up here. And we'll start with the Death card, because I think that one can be the most overwhelming, the most intimidating. Very, very rarely would this card ever be indicating an actual death. It is the symbolism of transformation, this idea of moving through the cycle of, and the key phrase I like to use is picked clean to the bone, shedding the skins of the soul, releasing layers that have died, releasing things, habits, circumstances, moving on. And we see even in this card, in the distance, the sun is rising. There's a new dawn on the horizon. And so, there's layers of symbolism we could get into about this card and what everything means, the colors, the flowers, everything that we're seeing on the card has meaning. But I like to say for the death card that it really is the symbol of rebirth, very tied in with metamorphosis and transformation. And you can see here, as it's depicted in this beautiful version from the Lightseer's Tarot, after decay, the ground is abundantly fertile. It's the cycles of life. All things must die in order for that rebirth to occur. And so when we get the death card, it can symbolize that there's great transformation on the horizon, but it is nothing to fear. When we see that, it is an indicator that we can look at what in my life is passing, what in my life is ready to transform. And that is a very beautiful way for us to see a very significant stop along our Fool's journey. So then that takes us to the Devil card. Now, this one we can see here gives a nod to the traditional symbolism of the original tarot. And remembering that this illustration, this version of the tarot, the Rider-Waite-Smith version, was created in the early 1900s. And so it is reflected by the people and the times and the symbols. And so here we see something that's really got that image of that fire and brimstone, the devil, and we see these two figures shackled and chained. And yet we always point out that those chains are not very tight around the neck. The Devil card symbolizes prisons of our own making. Addictions, patterns, beliefs, limiting beliefs, things that keep us held captive, playing small. Once again, we see another depiction from the Lightseer's Tarot with this devil. And it's tempting, right? It can be tempting. It's comfortable. It's the devil we know. And here it is with these puppet strings, pulling these strings. And so, it can be intimidating to see that imagery, and yet we can peel back the layers and look deeper to see that the Devil card speaks to us about our perceptions of being imprisoned, our perceptions of being beholden to, again, addictions, patterns, behaviors, ways of being that we have outgrown. So when we see this card, we look deeper to know that it's a coming around again, in a sense, of patterns and things that show up to continue to stretch us and pull us toward our expansion. So that is one way that I like to look at the Devil card that is not all fire and brimstone. Now, this is a good one. We have the Tower card. And of course, the traditional depiction of the Tower is quite striking, right? It's the jolt of that tower. It's visceral. It's often coming across as being frightening. I always say nothing to fear. It represents necessary change, a jolt, something that comes along, usually unexpectedly. This can be a good surprise or not, something that comes in perhaps shockingly, rocking the foundation, but it's necessary upheaval. It's necessary change. The chaos that I move toward is the brightest light. In chaos, I move towards the brightest light. So here we see it depicted as these individuals falling from this building. The foundation is crumbling and a rebuild is necessary. I have never seen a more beautiful Tower card than it is depicted here on the left from the Lightseers. Because I like to think about this tree that may have been in this forest for centuries. And along came this bolt of lightning that took it out. Now, maybe the tree really was strong and beautiful still, but perhaps the tree was diseased. Perhaps there were parts of the tree that needed to be cleared. And so this sudden bolt of lightning comes along and brings it down to its stump. But look what happens to the tree over time of rebuilding. It is repurposed. It becomes shelter, habitat for the creatures of the forest. And here we see it symbolized again with butterflies emerging, transformation, necessary disruption, necessary upheaval. And there's another opportunity that we have with the Tower card to say, what if I leap? Change is going to come along and send me catapulting, or I can be the agent of change. I can invite the change in and be in the driver's seat and leap into the new. So that's another really beautiful way to look at this sometimes intimidating card. Now, the final major arcana card that you asked to take a look at today is the Judgment card. And so looking at the traditional card here, and we see this angel hearkening down below to individuals who are literally rising up out of crypts. What does that mean? Judgment call. And yes, in the traditional card, this is said to be Archangel Gabriel, the messenger angel, who is giving that clarion call, awakening. It's like Judgment Day, calling those souls up to heaven, if you would look at it that way. There is an angle to interpret it that way. But some other potential meanings for the Judgment card have to do with awakening in a way to our truest selves, seeing the light, self-realization and understanding, a spiritual awakening, total transparency, unveiling our spirit. And so again, I turn to this beautiful version from the Light Seers where we see this uprising of our true self. Face the music with your true voice and find the clearest of harmonies. And so this is about answering the call to being your most authentic self, unapologetically so. But it asks us to take a look at that word, judgment. You have judged others and have been judged yourself. And this is a card on the Fool's Journey that symbolizes that you are awakening to the understanding that the only approval that really matters is your own. You can look at whether you are doing your best with others and with yourself. And it harkens a time to shed any negative facades or masks that you may be wearing, putting on an act for others due to their expectations or their potential judgments or dislike, perhaps, of your true self. And so that is a feeling that can feel risky, trepidatious, and yet it is through that act of self-acceptance that you will unleash your absolute essence into the world. And so that includes the light and the dark, our shadow aspects as well. I mean, this card is a good one. This is a card that really asks us to look at our true essence. And that's because you may notice it's card 20. And so we talked about the Fool's Journey being moving through the 21 cards. So this one is almost at the end. It's almost the culmination of this leg of the Fool's Journey. And so when we get to this place, when we see this card, it is about casting away all of those facades and releasing the judgments that we hold and the judgments that have been held against us and standing in our true authenticity, unapologetically so. It's a beautiful card. And so I mentioned this leg of the Fool's Journey because once we move to that culmination of the final card, which is the World, and we've had it, we've come full circle, we have completion, it starts again. We go back around again to that beginning. And so today we just looked at 5 of those cards. But I invite you to take a little look at each of them and see what's popping out for you, what you see in the signs and symbols, and step into those different lenses and angles that you can look at things. And then perhaps if there's other cards in the major arcana that you wish to pursue further, that you want to explore, I would love to continue this journey with you. If there are any other cards in the major arcana that you're interested in exploring, or any questions at all that you have about the tarot that are coming up, I would love to collect another group of questions that we could put together, perhaps a series here, to explore this fool's journey together. There is so much to see. This is barely the tip of the iceberg, but I hope that you've enjoyed taking this walk with me today on April 1st, April Fool's Day. I thank you for joining me. I would love to hear your comments, questions. Please put them below if you're in our group. This video will be pinned to the top of the page for you to view as you wish. If you're on my YouTube channel, it will be here with my videos, and there will be timestamps below for you to navigate the video. Also, I've recently added a Grow in the Flow page on Facebook. If you are on Facebook, I would love for you to come over and like my page and follow me there, where I will be placing updates about my fool's journey as well. Thank you so much. Sending you much love and many blessings. Take good care.